Welcome back, everybody, to Stuff That Matters Now, and this is celebrating 100 episodes, and today the tables are turned, and I am going to be interviewed by Collective Intelligence's patron, Marg Kouvelis, an alumni member as well. Kia ora, Marg.
Kia ora, Harv. What an honour.
Well, I couldn't think of anybody better to celebrate this than with you, Marg, so thank you.
It's my pleasure, Harv. I have loved the whole podcast idea of yours from the very beginning, and I was just thinking how long it is since you began this, and I think it was probably around about 2018, but anyway, to get to 100 is pretty mind-blowing because probably I've only heard about half a dozen, so I've got a lot more to listen to. But I'm absolutely wowed by the variety of people that you've interviewed. And my understanding was initially that it was people who were members of CQ.
Yep. It's broadened a little bit from that, but it's been mostly Collective Intelligence members, yeah.
And what an eclectic bunch.
Yeah, they really are. Really are. It's been cool.
But then, as I said to you a while ago, why did you choose to do this? And why did you choose to call it Stuff That Matters Now?
So many podcasts interview famous people, and they bring these famous people on, and some of them are talking heads, and so many of the really rich stories you never hear. And so the majority of the people I've interviewed have never been interviewed before, didn't think that they were worthy of being interviewed. So that's a common thing that's come through. I would say 80% of the people I've interviewed have said, why would you want to interview me? And so most of the cool things that are done in the world are done by people who aren't famous, don't get recognised for it in a working way. And so I wanted to bring those stories out, and it was because as a facilitator I'd heard those stories, and I thought I wanted to bring them out and give them more air. And so I have loved interviewing people. And look, there's been people, Mark, who have been so nervous that I've had to stop the interview, give them a break, come back, sit down and do it again. And they've been wonderful once they got going. So it was about the everyday people that I wanted to interview. Yeah.
It's a wonderful concept, Harv, and it's so simple. We all have a story. Every human being has a story. And yet it's occurred to me that we don't often get our opportunity to actually tell our story.
And I think we need to get better at it, Mark. I think storytelling is so important, and you know all the ancient tribes and so forth, it was all about storytelling, and they got taught how to tell stories. And I think telling their stories is important, and I think that we need to honour those stories, and they are just stories, they're not fact, and recognising for that as well. So storytelling is really important, and part of that storytelling is also being a good listener. And I think the podcast has made me a better listener in this process, because I sit there and listen to it, and what I filter is going, would I want to listen to this? And I did one interview with a chap, and I gave him the most terrible interview, and I felt really bad about it. And I sat on it for a week, and then I rang him, and I said, mate, I'm sorry, I'm not going to put it up. I interviewed really poorly, and if it's okay with you, could we do it again? And what I love about that story, Marg, is we did re-record it. It was really good, and it's our most listened to podcast we've ever done.
Oh, amazing.
But I just gave him a terrible interview for the first one, yeah.
So there is a skill in the art of questioning.
Yeah, there is. I've had some feedback recently that my questions need to get sharper, so I'm working on that. and talk less as the interviewer. So I'm working on that at the moment, and I'm doing some reading and research on asking better questions. And the last few episodes I've put out, I've definitely talked a lot less. Yeah. So, and it's fun, Mark.
I can see that. So let's just pause there a minute and think about you and how it feels to have interviewed these 100 people. What's that feeling like in you?
Oh, look, it's definitely a privilege, because a few people have said no. The third podcast I ever did was with a wonderful chap, Aniki Goro. And Aniki is a profoundly interesting and accomplished man. And he is very private, and it's very hard to get an interview with. I asked him 5 times. And then finally he said no 5 times. And then finally he said, yeah, okay. He lives in Christchurch. He said, yep, I am free at 3 p.m. on Sunday and I'll be in Wellington. And I went, okay, I'll be there. And he was like, you bugger. And that was the first interview. I sat there and I looked at the machine recording, and I thought, I hope you're bloody working, because the thing with Aniki, when he says something, you never get the same thing twice. And I just looked at this machine and went, I hope you are working, because this is absolute gold.
Wow.
So that was the first time I felt intimidated in a podcast. Yeah, it was just not intimidated. Not intimidated is not the right word. I just felt the pressure of it, and just going, it was a big deal to get this story down. Yeah.
So have you ever then been daunted to the point that you think, well, I won't do any more of these?
Look, when I've had periods of being tired, burnout, stuff like that, and I thought, does anybody listen to this? And then actually you were with me, Mark. You were with me. And it was before Christmas. We just had a board meeting, and I was feeling a bit frustrated and tired. And we were at an event in Palmerston North, and a woman came up to me and said, I've just listened to your episode of such and such. I can't remember what it was. And I just loved that interview. And it meant so much to me that people, because it's not about the numbers.
No.
It's about what impact you have on people. And that's what this thing's about. And stuff that matters now, Lara is very good at focusing me behind the scenes and going, so why is this podcast important now? And it's a great filter. And look, they're not in any particular order, but just trying to focus on things that is important now.
So I am interested in what draws you to these people, because I have to say, when I have listened to them, they are so different. And then I think, gosh, how's Harv even know that person? How's he got in touch with them?
So, as I said, most of them, I'd say 90% of them are members, so that's easy. However, there was one that I reached out to and I didn't know him, and that was Rod Oram.
Oh, right. I have
And I was really intimidated by Rod because, he was famous, and he's very smart and very articulate. I reached out to him through a connection and asked whether he would be happy to do a podcast, having never met him. And he said yes. Now, I've since learnt that he said yes to everybody. But at the time, I felt very, very special. And that podcast then became an annual conversation. We'd have a State of the Nation at the beginning of every year. And he was a journalist, so he had a great recall, and he could tap into all sorts of stuff, and I became fascinated with this. So the first podcast I did was pretty bland, and I felt a little bit. I felt, once again that I was in the presence of this great person. I needed to act a certain way. And then I said to him, let's do it next year. And he said, love to. And so I think we did maybe 4 or 5 years. And the most poignant thing, and then we became mates. And through this, and that was kind of interesting. Then the last interview I did with him, and he was pretty down, Marg. He was the new coalition government had come in, and he was really disturbed. For those of you who don't know Rod, he was a very keen activist in the environmental field, and he was really upset by the likes of Shane Jones and some of the thinking around mining and pushing back on some of the reforms that we'd had in the environmental space, and he was really down. And I remember at the end of it, I gave him a hug, and because he was pretty upset by the whole situation. And then 4 or 5 days later, he had an accident on his bike, and his push bike, and he died. And that was the last interview, and I asked the family whether we could. I went to his funeral and asked the family whether it was okay to put the podcast up, which they sanctioned. And it was a pretty unusual feeling to be in the cathedral in Auckland, Marg, and at this profound funeral, and stuff that matters now gets mentioned in the service, and the podcast will be up next week. So that was a real opportunity for me to connect with this guy, because so that was a bit of that was really interesting to give me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's how it's all now become a treasure. I have listened to Rod's ones and been just amazed at his insights, and that you actually interviewed him from that very first one and decided to do that each year.
Yeah.
And I think that was a great idea, and possibly he's the only one you've done that with.
It's the only one. I did a series with Che Wilson, so I did a podcast with Che, who's an alumni member of Collective Intelligence, and then when I was on that journey of wanting to learn more about the Ngāhere, the rainforest of New Zealand, and it was during COVID times, and so we would often do these podcasts when he was in lockdown. And so Che is a very busy guy, and so we did a series of maybe 3 or 4 interviews where he taught me about the Ngāhere. He's the holder of ancient wisdom, and so that was the only person I've done another series with. And look, I've got to say, I really miss going back to Rod. I really miss Rod.
Yeah.
I really miss him now in this time, and when so many reforms are being pushed back on, and he'll be turning in his grave right now with some of the stuff that's going on. And I loved having the conversations around regenerative agriculture, because Rod would say he didn't have a green finger too, everything he touched just died. So it was, I always enjoyed those conversations with him. And he was, an incredibly generous man, yeah.
Harv, what strikes me about a lot of these interviews is your own journey through them. So when you talk about stuff mattering now, is that stuff mattering now to you? Is that stuff mattering now to those of us who live in Aotearoa, or those of us being humans on this planet?
I think that's where Lara's influence comes in, because she's very good at making it less about me and more about what we need in Aotearoa right now. So she is a very good foil for me because I can get on my little pet projects and so forth, or, I'm a naturally curious person, and so I can go down rabbit holes and she is very, very good. Lara's very good at pulling my head up and onto the horizon. I've just done a podcast with a fabulous young woman, Bridget Bell,
Yes.
and that was Lara's doing. I'd met Bridget a few times. She's our local Māori ward member on the council and a very, very smart young woman. And so we dedicated that podcast to the upcoming elections and the Māori wards and so forth.
I noticed that because I went on last night and was delighted to see that you'd interviewed Bridget. I haven't heard it yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, look, she's and I think I put up on LinkedIn that this is what we have feared as Pākehā. This is what we've feared. It's such a gift having her on the council.
Yes.
And so that's like So there have been times where I have gone down rabbit holes, and it's been about me wanting to understand something, and it's. And so working with Lara is very good. She's a lot more strategic than I am. Yeah, a lot more strategic.
However, you've got a delightful sense of humour, so just tell me who's made you laugh. What's been the funniest moment?
God, man, I did one interview with a young woman called Viv Conway, and Viv has got a business called Girls Get Off. And they're all about normalising women's sexual pleasure, right? Now, Viv is young enough to be my daughter. I interviewed her in her warehouse in Tauranga and surrounded by all these sex toys. And we're doing this interview, and she had a little dog there, and we had to stop the interview or pause it because a little dog had found a dildo and was chewing on it underneath the table. And you could hear in the background this nom, 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 nom. And Viv, being Viv, she's so open. She said, I just need my little dog. She described it. And it was Marg, it was hilarious because she's of a generation that is so open and very hip in her own skin. And I thought, this is hilarious, And I thought, through it, now, how do I not come across as a dirty old man, right?
Yeah.
So that was there for me, and that was alive and well, and I think I got away with it. And in large part that is because Viv is so open and easy, and she's quite serious about this quest she's on. But she's very good at marketing and all that. She's now based in Sydney, and but that was the funny thing. Anyway. My sons, that's the most listened to. All my sons' friends,
Yes.
Listen to that, and I got lots of feedback from them. So that was, I think that was one of the funnier moments I had, and got away with it. Yeah. And so thanks to Viv for allowing that opportunity to have that conversation.
Oh, very good. I'm thinking, what was the most memorable?
There's been a number. I think the one that stands out for me, and this was the biggest privilege I ever had, was doing an interview with Dave Blackwell. And Dave is a very smart man, CEO, and we had the most intimate conversation about his journey, his personal journey, and it was something else, and at the end of it, he just got up and walked out. And anyway, he texted me afterwards and he said his EA, Claire Bond at the time, a fabulous woman, and he said if Claire's happy for it to go up, then you can release it. And he said, I don't want to listen to it. And Claire listened to it and she said, yep, I'm okay with that, you can put it up. And so I think that was it was just his sheer courage to share his journey about where he was right then.
Right.
So people are very good at sharing their stories about things that have gone in the past, but now they're all good. He was sharing about where he was right then in his personal journey. And I just sat there and just thought, wow, okay. And and that, if he'd said he didn't want to put it up, I wouldn't have put it up. So that was I think the one that stands out. There's been many. Another one quite different was sitting down with a chap called Rob McGowan, and Rob, as he's known to some as Pāraupata, and Rob had been a Catholic priest up the Wanganui River, and he left the church because he realised he couldn't work with Māori and be a Catholic priest. He had to give up one because he was compromised, and so he gave up being a Catholic priest. And we sat down, Mark, and I cut him off for about a bit over 2 hours. We would still be talking now. And of course he's as part of their training. The guy was incredibly articulate and fascinating. And I just thought, wow, here I am, and this guy is, and I'd only met him. I'd met him through Trey Wilson, and I've since got to know him a lot better, and he's got a wonderful movement called Tiwai Waka, who we partner with, and I've been up and pruned trees at Tiwai Waka with Rob, and that was really, it's one of those, it's an overused word now, Marg, privilege, but it really was. I just thought, how cool is this that I'm able to talk to this guy? Yeah.
I think what's astounding is the degree of vulnerability that people are prepared to share with you, Harv.
Yeah.
And that must come as both a surprise but also an extraordinary experience of trust.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, Mark, isn't it? You know?
When you hardly know them,
yeah,
in some cases.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I mean, that happened with Bridget as well. And it's something that I've become more aware of, that I have inability to build that quickly, and I don't know, I'm an unconscious competent with that. I don't know what that's about. And it's something I never take lightly. You know, it's something that, it's something I always respect. Yeah.
And can I just share with you, having been one of the people who you interviewed, that is hard because it is a genuine experience of human being to human being, and you convey to us that you don't know it all. In the whole, you are fascinated with who we are, but in the questions you ask and the way that you present in front of us, as you are with me now, is this fallible human being, this person who's learnt a lot from his mistakes. And because of the courage and the vulnerability that you've demonstrated in your life at different times, some of it I'm aware of, some of it I'm not, and I certainly wasn't when I was interviewed. That somehow conveyed Harv. There's an unconscious conversation seems to be going on beneath the actual words that we share. And that is this, because we're face to face, I think that's another thing. So there are those indications which give us permission to say more than perhaps we would in other interviews. So I know it's not just about the questions, that's why I'm saying that. There is something about your whole being that creates a sense of trust. Well, we can share our vulnerabilities here with this person.
Yeah. Knowing that it's going to be broadcast. You know, it's a there's a chemistry thing that happens, Marg, and you know, it's thank you. Do you remember what you said to me at the end of that interview, Marg?
No, I haven't a clue. What did I say?
You said to me something like, "I love you, Harv."
Oh yes, I do too.
And I said, "I love you, Marg." And you know, it was just so spontaneous. It was a lovely moment, and that was during COVID times. I remember, and we had found a bit of clear air in between the lockdowns, and got this done. And that was, I just love the spontaneity of that, Marg. It was so much fun. There was another COVID interview I did, and I can't remember, it was maybe the second or third lockdown, and it was with up in Taranaki and with Liana Potu. And Liana is a chair of one of the iwi up there, and is a very lovely, I was going to say young woman, lovely woman, all of about 4'11", and she they had stopped traffic coming into Taranaki because of their memory from, you know, the plague, not the plague, but the flu epidemic in 1919 or whatever it was, and memory from that, and their people were decimated through that period. And so I was dying, I was itching to get up there. It was the worst interview I ever did, because I was so excited to be out of lockdown. And I remember listening to it and going, "Oh, just shut up, you dick, shut up." Oh, it was the most. So Liana, I apologise for that interview. She was very generous, but it was just, I'm just sitting going, I almost took it down, but I thought, I need to wear it. It was terrible. It was terrible.
So, Harv, tell me about the people who've wanted their episode taken down.
Look, there's two that we have taken down. There's been two we took down, and very, very sad. One was because of mental health, and a guy was just, was having a very bad episode. And it's a pity, because it was a wonderful story, and so that's been taken down. Another one, which is equally as sad, very good interview, and these both had been up for a little while, and this chap was transgender, and he talked about on the podcast, and he had kids that didn't know about his journey, and so they were going to learn listening to this podcast, and he was okay with that. He asked me to put it down, take it down, because he changed cities, and he was facing some online bullying, and I'm very, very sad that we took that down, because it was a profound interview to understand a person's journey through that. And I am very sad that we took that down, and I'm not sure we'll get permission to put it back up in the future, but I just think, you know, that's crap that we had to do that. So that was, that I'm very, very sad about that. Marg, very sad about that. There was another episode I did with a chap, Hamish Ramsden. Hamish is a tetraplegic, and he had written a book and called "The Dog's Getting Fat," and that interview was Hamish is a mate of mine. We go back to teenage days, and my biggest challenge on that podcast was not to cry, mate, and to try and keep it, to try and keep myself together through that. And fuck, I only just got through. And so I love that. I love that interview with Hamish, and and it was a very personal, because his brother Andy rang me the night that he had been in his accident, and it was a terrible turn of events through that. So that was, it was to promote his book, and it was pretty tricky. Yeah.
So Harv, these interviews can be pretty powerful, and I'm sure you've got no idea what the reach is. So, how far do you think that they are going?
Well, we do know, because you can watch it on the stuff, that these are listened to all around the world, which is the power of the digital age. And so I love looking at the map and seeing where they pop up. But my favourite story with where they've popped up was a retired farmer down near Oamaru. And he was telling his daughter, he was in his early 90s, and he was telling his daughter, I listened to this podcast. Right? And he's a farmer too. He's not farming now, but he used to be a farmer, and he swears on it. And he was quite delighted that about this, not knowing that his daughter was a member of Collective Intelligence. And so I interviewed her, and this chap would have got the fright of his life listening to this podcast one day, and next thing, it's my daughter being interviewed. And I never learnt what the reaction is with that. But it was so lovely listening to somebody that I didn't know talking about that. So, look, you can see it, and the podcasts are becoming more popular. No, that's been a surprise to me, that there are more of those, more and more. And most podcasts are they've got a production team behind them, and they've got sponsorship and so forth. And we haven't gone down that track. We don't edit the podcast, although we have edited the odd one or two. But we were advised at the beginning, don't do that, because you just build a whole lot of cost and effort into it. So we have kept the long form, we've kept not editing. I think there was one pause with Rod Oram. I asked him a question, and the gap between that and the answer was something like 9 seconds. And he said to me, oh, you edit that out. And I went, no, Rod, I wouldn't edit that out, even if we did edit, because I was delighted that I made him think.
Yes.
I was delighted. There's been a couple of really long podcasts, and we've broken them up. One was Rob McGowan, and the other one was a guy, Ian McDougall. And they were both relevant. Ian had been the CEO for Such and Such. No, he'd been the general manager for Such and Such. The guy's in his 70s, worked all around the world. And we cut that up as a resource and put it out. We put it out in long form and cut up pieces as well. And that was was amazing to listen to a guy into a world that you don't get to see into. Yeah.
And I think that's why podcasts are so powerful. Is because you get the opportunity to speak to the person who may have set this up. Or their experience with whatever it is speaks to you where you are now. And so it's fascinating to me, and I would expect this would be happening a lot, are the doors that you've opened for other people from having these podcasts. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, So I looked at the figures last night. So 46 of the interviews, 47 of the interviews have been with women. 17, so that's 47% have been with women, 17% have been with Māori. I do like the fact that we can, if they want to listen to it, they can hear things they wouldn't normally listen to through an average Pākehā framework, right? And so to try and make these stories more accessible. Flip side of that, Marg, is you get these disappointments when you look at the numbers. So I think the two most serious, important podcasts I've done were the least listened to. One was on suicide and one was on vaccine manufacturing.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. And both of them just never took off. And they are both of them had really good information on them, and they were good podcasts. The people being interviewed were articulate. And I'm really disappointed with that, because it's like, if there were two I would want people to listen to, it would be with Anita Dirks talking about vaccine manufacturing. This was done in the last 6 months. And the process that companies go to manufacture and test, or to test and manufacture vaccines. And I thought it was really important. And the other one was with Carla Nanagorn when she was head of the suicide prevention program, and they never fired. So yes, because people listened to them. 100 and something people listened to them, but they never took off. And I go, was it too heavy? Was it too? I don't know. The thing that, and particularly with the suicide one for me, is that we didn't get into it with Carla specifically, but we tried to send a message out. So one of the things, I'm from a farming background. I've lived in the rural sector all my life. There is a rural myth out there that farmer suicides are a big deal. The reality is they're not. And we try to get that message out there subtly, and Carla could not say specifically because it's politically sensitive. But we try to get that message quietly out there. So, because we talked about what are the big drivers of suicide in New Zealand. The poverty, racism, and intergenerational trauma. And so who dominate the figures are young Māori. But we've got this rural myth out there that farmers are really susceptible to suicide. And it's just not true. And Carla had been a coroner before this, but politically it has been utilised by political forces that for political reasons. And it's a difficult subject to talk about, and it's very sensitive, Marg, but it's something that that myth is protected very, very strongly, not stacked up by any numbers. And so, that's a disappointment for me that those two episodes did not get traction.
So, Harv, I'm going to ask you, if you were on a desert island and there were 3 people that you could interview separately, who would they be? Who would you take there?
Bit of warning, would it be good, Marg, for this?
This is what you do to us.
Look, I'd take you, Marg, because I love your company. Who would it be? Look, I would love to, and I'm interested in people who want to create a better world. So while I'm thinking about who that might be, that's who I would interview. Adam Grant would be one of them. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Grant, he's not a Kiwi, he's American, he's an academic. I love his thinking and love his work. So Adam Grant would be one of them. And
What's he think?
well, it's about he's a psychologist. I think he's got a PhD and that sort of stuff. But he's very good at. He's a bit like the Brené Brown type stuff. They're very
yes.
good at doing the research, and they're very good at making it accessible. So Grant's got a wonderful way of making things accessible. So he would be one. I'd take. The other one would be Matthew Syed, who is similar but different, and he's an English dude, I think Iranian background, and he is same in taking complex stuff and making it accessible. And I've read a lot of his work, and I just can't get enough of that. And the other one would be Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, yes.
There you go. And if I could pick one of those three, and I realise those are all three
Males.
men, so I'd go with Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
I met him once, and he'd come to, I'd listened to him speak up in Auckland, and then he had gone out that night looking for a restaurant. He had 3 books and under his arm, and I popped up and said good day to him, and I thought, I was going to invite him over to share a table with me, but I thought, he's an introvert, he's been talking to people all day, he don't want to talk to anybody else, he just wants to find a quiet restaurant. So those, and why those 3, Marg? It's because I just love their thinking. I love the fact that they're always, nothing's black and white. Mm-hmm. And these 3 are very good at digging away at the black and white and making it grey, and going, okay, that's not, and I've become more and more interested in that as I get older, of going, nothing, I don't like it when people are really sure about things, right?
Yeah.
And because when we're very sure about things, it's only because we're not listening to a whole lot of other views, because I don't believe in anything being right or wrong anymore. It's just, there's just different
It's
views
evolving, and I think Gladwell speaks to that very powerfully, because he wrote a book and then he wrote another book criticising what he'd said, and he changed his position, and I thought, I just loved that too.
I think that's a really important aspect, Marg, is we should change our mind.
Yeah.
And if we're not changing our mind, it's because we're not doing the work. And so it can be confusing for people, but go, no, I've changed my mind. I've got more information, changed my mind. And I think it's good to put ideas forward articulately and so forth, but then not hold them too tightly and go, yeah, okay. So I think that's important. And I really enjoy the podcast thing. I had an argument with Bettina, who was working with us at the time, Bettina Anderson, who I interviewed for the podcast, who said, nobody will listen to this. Well, Bettina, they did. But Bettina and I had this conversation because I wanted to do 1 a week.
Oh, my goodness.
And she was like, no, 1 a fortnight's enough, or one a month's enough. And we fought over this for about 3 weeks, and she got her way, and she was right. And 1 a fortnight's enough. And when I had suffered burnout, I don't think I put anything up for 6 months. So, yeah. Anyway, we've done 100 episodes, Marg. I've talked to archdeacons, to people who sell sex toys, to school principals, to Māori leaders, to, young and old. It's been a blast.
So we're going to have another 100?
I think so. I think so. It surprised me getting it to 100 go.
Yes.
Because I only counted up the other day. I went, holy fuck, we're at 100 episodes, so let's celebrate. Yeah, Marg, and I think the guided by Lara, finding people that need to have a voice and to elevate that voice, I think is really important. And to, we need change, and we need to promote the change makers. Yeah.
And so how has it changed you?
I'm a lot less chatty. I'm a lot less chatty. I was up in Auckland recently, and I was working with a group of people and facilitating, and I needed to talk at the beginning of it, and I talked for 20 minutes, and I was fucking sick of my voice after 20 minutes. But it was something I had to get done. And I would much rather listen to people now and to try and guide that conversation. So it's made me a lot quieter. It's made me more reflective. It's made me concentrate more. So the thing with the podcast, you've got to concentrate. And so it's helped me with that, just to stop, sit down, listen, concentrate on what's being said and not rush. So the podcasts are long form. We've made them slightly shorter recently. We've cut them down by about 15% to try and lift the listening thing. But, there are podcasters out there who they're consistently 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Which is quite interesting. And these are world-renowned podcasters. It's made me quite critical of some other podcasts, Mark, some famous podcasts. And I listen to them and go, ask them ask the question, ask the question. Oh, you've just had an opening then, you've done nothing with it. And they've got this list of questions. I went, oh my God, the person you're interviewing has just given you a piece of gold and you have ignored it because you've got a written question. So I don't go in with, this will be the most prepared I've been for a podcast ever, Mark, because I've written down people I wanted to talk about and some and so that there was some things I wanted to get out. But normally I don't do that. I just sit in the moment and go with where the conversation takes us. And some people want more structure than others, and that's okay. So I help them, but generally I just sit there and go with where the conversation goes. And it makes me, because I'm normally a little bit nervous before I sit down, which is a good thing. Just, the heartbeat goes up a bit and I go, here we go. And thinking, just like I am right now, somebody's going to listen to this. And so it needs to be worthwhile. And we need to think about the listeners and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you because sitting with people and listening intently to them and releasing in them their true identity. We use that word authenticity a lot, but it is an extraordinary, I think, authentic experience for those who've been interviewed. May I suggest that you interview a podcast interviewer, as possibly you could share with them something from your technique. But I want to say on behalf of all of those of us who've been interviewed, and all of those who listen, and all of those who are going to listen, what a rich legacy you have given us of these human beings who, as you say, are not people who seek the limelight, are not famous in the sense that we talk about those who reach great heights in sport or whatever other fields, artistic. And I think that genuine appreciation of the story that each of us has to tell if we're given the opportunity to tell it. But I think also the other part that's always impressed me is the stuff that matters now. Human beings matter, their stories matter, and what they've got to share with us now really matters. So thank you, Harp.
Pleasure, Marg. I'm going to stop there because that's a wonderful way to finish the podcast. Thank you for your time, Marg. It's been lovely.
Pleasure.